the sun's coming out today and the low temperature is almost at freezing level. And what's going on today? I thought this was kind of interesting, where apparently in Oregon, they say for things like the parks, they're trying to create, I guess, drone classification areas where you can actually fly and where you can't, which is kind of interesting. This one here, they wrote drone map classification criteria and they want feedback. It says, can you help Oregon Parks and Recreation Department develop clear guidelines for where people can fly their recreational drones safely? We are looking to get your thoughts, feedbacks, and ideas from October 23 through December 2023. And you can see basically they have these three, I guess, categories. One is prohibited, conditional, open. So how do they describe these areas? Open, it says permits are not required. For example, saying all areas not meet the condition outlined in the restricted or conditional. For the conditional, it says will require a site-specific daily permit. For example, areas that contain environmental conditions that increase the risk of the loss of control or recovery. That's kind of a weird, I guess, way of saying it, isn't it? Technically, when flying around a tree, be a potential risk of loss and recovery. So it sounds like they're saying open field, for example. Then they talk about things like wildlife. And then prohibited, it says exceptions may be requested through special use permit. For example, areas that pose a negative impact to a cultural resource, overnight campgrounds, areas sharing a boundary to federally or state protected areas explicitly prohibiting drone takeoff and landing. I think that's one of the key words too, because even in reading this and with all their examples, there's still the factor of they can dictate where people can land and take off, but they can't dictate where people could fly. So it's like one of those things where you could literally land and take off, let's just say from your own property near the area, fly over it, and they can't really do much about it in that sense. But in general, would you agree with these types of procedures, let's just say for every single park there is you could think of in the world? Or would you say it's completely overboard? For example, I know one of the examples they wrote here was saying in campgrounds and all that. I mean, on one side, you could say, hey, people don't like it, it's annoying and all that, but what happens if people are just camping themselves? They want to take like an aerial video of where they are, which is common nowadays. Like, should that be illegal? Or you need like a permit which they charge money for? Would you be okay with that? But as they say, it's only an idea at this point and they're looking for feedback, so who knows if they'll actually go through with it. And this was a fascinating story, I thought, where usually when it comes to various topics, certain people will, let's just say, a contradicting view from what someone doesn't like, they would normally be attacked by a lot of people. And the claim many times is these are, for example, paid trolls or whatever you want to call it. But how about this one, where apparently in this case, they actually proved people were paid to essentially make, for example, videos and negative, I guess, content about a certain person. This one says, weaponization of influencers in disinformation networks sharpens media's crisis of trust. The rise of disinformation networks on TikTok sharpens Filipinos' distrust in news outlets. In a coordinated smear campaign against Filipino-British personality Maggie Wilson, various TikTok influencers were exposed for being paid to troll her and her company. Wilson's disinformation battle is a striking illustration of the crisis of trust that proliferates in our information landscape. So as they say, which is kind of happening around the world, a lot of people are just distrusting things like mainstream media, for example. And it says here for things like these micro-influencers, content creators openly acknowledging they accept fees in exchange for the spread of fabricated information sheds light on the tactics employed by purveyors of disinformation. They finance influencers in recognition of their effectiveness in manipulating people's beliefs. So in this situation, it seems like what the person did was she found out that these people were being paid, I guess, to do it based on a suspicion that everyone's kind of using the same script, for example. And afterwards, I guess they're potentially opening up a lawsuit, I guess, like potentially for defamation. And they kind of stated, I guess, in the screenshots and so forth, like here it says, to all content creators, organizers, and others that participated in this campaign, we have all your names and many of your IDs, places of work, school, etc. Even if the videos were deleted, many have messaged trying to pass the blame on others, and the person is basically saying, please DM them all the screenshots and I guess proof of them being paid to do this, and with that they will decide themselves if they will take action on people. And sure enough, that's apparently what happened, where a lot of people confessed to it, where they were paid to essentially write this negative information about the person. This is crazy, because many times people will say this is what's happening, but there's just no proof, and in this case they actually have the proof. It just kind of reinforces my general thinking too, where usually if I see someone getting attacked non-stop, like just out of nowhere, all of a sudden I have to wonder, okay, what's going on? Are all these guys, for example, affiliated with each other? Because many times here, you would think, for example, oh, if the person who really hates this individual wants to in some ways make them sound bad, they'll do it themselves. Not the case. They'll just get other people to do it. I'm trying to think if I've ever dealt with anything like this before. Not in this huge scale, for example, but I think it's pretty obvious when you see, for example, certain people, they try to always make you sound bad for whatever reason. You can say they're a troll, but it just seems like they have some kind of ulterior motive. For example, it could be companies where, again, they don't do it themselves. Don't get other people to do it to make it look legitimate, for example, just to harass people. Or at the same time, if they want to push themselves and all of a sudden you get these magical people saying how wonderful they are, again, look for the connection. Usually there's some kind of financial incentive there that generates, I guess, those types of responses, which is kind of sad, unfortunately. Everyone is different. I know, just for me, for example, just from that type of lifestyle where I constantly see every day, certain people always getting attacked because they're speaking, for example, let's just say the truth, or is not the popular opinion. And many times when you base it on the facts and all that, you can say, hey, this doesn't make sense. Like this person, for example, actually does make sense. And then you connect the dots where all these people who are, let's just say, trying to take the person down, they all have some kind of, for example, business connection, financial connection. I would say that would be true even for things like drones. That's one thing, let's just say, a fake guru or a lobbyist does better. They have a bigger spam network. That's what I would say anyways, in terms of bribing people. Like, it wouldn't necessarily be just about money, like you pay them like in these cases. It could be something else where the promise of supporting, let's just say, them in these narratives will reward you in the future and so forth. So there's so much conflict of interest. I said it before, but it makes you wonder, with examples like these, do people actually get wiser in terms of questioning when one person is extremely attacked and people say, no, never listen to this side, like that type of attitude? I don't know if people will change in that regards, but I guess it's good that an example like this is actually there with tangible proof. Alright, see you guys later.